Okay, and good afternoon, and welcome to Game Changers with Fabian Lyon. I am your host, Fabian Lyon, and I'm glad you could join me here on this Sunday evening. We have a special guest, and that is Che Buford. And Che, welcome to Game Changers with Fabian Lyon.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. And Che, you are a game changer in your field. You are a violinist and composer from Brooklyn. You are currently pursuing your BM in violin performance as a presidential scholar at the Boston Conservatory at Berkeley, where you're studying with Richter Noren.
Mhm.
So you have a lot going on, Che. And let me just open up by asking you, just tell me how you got into this genre of all the genres to pick, why did you pick the classical violin?
Yeah. So I was inspired by a recital that was happening at my elementary school, like a very child like recital. And after seeing that recital, I was inspired to pick up the violin, and I asked my parents if I could have one.
Hmm.
And I actually self-taught myself for 2 years um, by learning on YouTube and online stuff. And then at the age of 12 or 13, I started taking lessons. And 14 was when I started to really take it seriously.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, do you feel as yourself that you are a trailblazer in the classical music field community, seeing that you are a black man in an arena that we don't see. We've seen more, but we don't actually see a lot of black people. So maybe talk about that. Do you feel that you are a trailblazer?
Um, yes, I think in some ways, and I will definitely continue um, to really um, like to open the conversation about relevant issues when it comes to diversity in the classical music industry, and reshaping on how we could think about things in that culture.
Hmm.
Mm.
Okay. And just tell me, how does it feel to be in that community? Because obviously, I guess we all strive to be comfortable wherever we are or wherever we expect to spend an extended period of time. And obviously, that's your passion, that's your purpose.
Mhm.
Talk about how you feel being in such a community for the past, what, 10 years, you said?
Yeah. Hmm. I think in many ways it has been rewarding. Um, yeah, I think I've gotten a lot of opportunities with music, and it's been more rewarding, really trying to find my voice and um, yeah, really discover everything that I want in music.
Okay. And did you try other instruments and other genres first, or you went straight to classical violin?
When I started, I did kind of go straight into classical, but now I'm very open to trying different things. And definitely, yeah, I definitely want to open different doors besides classical in the future. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just tell me about what about the violin of all the instruments that you could have chosen? Obviously, very talented in that field. What about the violin, man, that really you fell in love with?
I think this sound that the violin produces, it's a very, um, it's almost like the human voice, and I just find a lot of the lyrical qualities of it very attractive. And now I think there's just so much that you can do with the instrument, and so many cool sounds and things you
Hmm.
can do with the violin.
Okay. So you're coming us live from Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah.
And that must be the mecca of just a cool place to be a musician. And by the way, the name cannot hurt. I mean, Che kind of fits any cool name in the arts, man. So everything's going perfect for you, man. So how does it feel to be in really the mecca, New York, New York?
Yeah, I definitely think it's very inspiring because, as you said, it is very like a mecca for everything, really. And I think it's inspiring to see a lot of musicians and composers just have such a unique voice in the city, and a lot of the arts here is very diverse, and you could see anything from the New York Phil performing to a whole reimagined concept of what a concert could be. So I think there's a huge array of like different kinds of art forms, and a lot of people have individual voices, which is very inspiring.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is there, I know you hear this question all the time, but I have to ask, was there or is there one violinist that really inspired you more than others, or you just kind of taken a little bit from a select few?
I would say a select few. There's like so many influences
Right.
I've had and still continue to have. Yeah.
Okay. Who would be like maybe the front runner in that short list?
I think for violin playing, I still look up to violinist on Sophie Mutter as just like a very great model for what a violinist should be. Um, yeah.
Okay. And what really, uh, when you say what a violinist should really be, what do you think a violinist should really be?
I think, um, I mean, I think it depends, but I think someone who's just true to what they believe and what sounds they aim to convey. I think for someone who is like a classical soloist, there's a different definition, but it really depends on what you want to do as an artist. So I think it really depends on what the person really wants.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you've played in some of the most famous arenas, so to speak, classical arenas, and Carnegie Hall being one of them.
Yeah.
Just speak on that, maybe, and maybe a couple of the other more famous arenas that you've played in. And your first time there, I want to know how nervous, if any, were you?
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I did have the opportunity to play at Carnegie Hall twice with two youth orchestras. And it was a very great experience because like most people will say like it isn't Carnegie Hall is a very um, like a very special hall to play in because because of how many people legends have played there as well as just the way it's acoustically built
Mhm.
um, and it's always a big deal when someone performs at Carnegie Hall, so it was very um, rewarding to have that experience and especially
Okay.
to share it with a bunch of young people as well.
Okay. Did you get any pre concert jitters, so to speak, or you just went in there like the man, and just you know, did what you had to do?
Yeah, I think the first time I did have a little like pre-concert jitters, but um, yeah, no. But the thing about Carnegie Hall is that I think there's something about the hall that just makes you play better and just perform at your best. So there was
Mhm.
nothing to be nervous about.
Okay. Now, something I find unique about you is, and I actually found you on IG, is that you go live with your practices, whereby some musicians, that might be a very private setting, in case they make a mistake and they don't want it to be, seen and viewed throughout the world. But tell me, in our talk a couple of days ago, you said you actually like that pressure, that it kind of prepares you
Yeah.
for concerts. So that's a unique perspective. Speak on that maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, so I started going live with my practices, I think the beginning of this year. And it was a way to just really hold myself accountable and also just show people like what the process is like when practicing an instrument and preparing for a recital. And I think it definitely has like one
Very,
held myself accountable and to just like kind of be fearless and like if you could perform if you could practice in front of people whoever it may be like performing isn't even that much of a big deal, so I think it's definitely has helped with like my performance confidence.
okay.
Yeah.
Have you got any unusual comments there, whether from an established violinist or just something that really stood out as far as your comments on your live?
Um, yeah, I mean, I usually get like a lot of positive feedback, even when it is like just very boring or like very practical practicing. I still get a lot of positive comments because I think people just appreciate like the work that has to get put into it.
Right. I know for myself, when I hear it, I'm tuning in for 10 minutes. I'm pouring a glass of wine, man. I'm good for the night, man. Just hearing you go through your recital. So thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to get into this evening. Theme by Brian Neighbors is one of the pieces. You're going to do a live piece. You've been so kind. And two other pieces. One is called If We Must Die, and another is called We Live Happily. We Lived Happily During the War. Now, if you could just speak on maybe the first one, a theme by Brian Neighbors, a little backdrop for the audience out there.
Yeah, so A Theme in Variations by Brian Raphael Nappers is a short showpiece for violin. And it really just, it's really a fun piece that just covers many of the technical aspects of the violin. And Brian Raphael Nappers is a living composer from Alabama.
Hmm.
And he's pretty young. And I learned this piece for a concert series early in October that brought light to composers of African descent and Mexican descent.
Hmm. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. And you're also a writer. Is there more or less pressure being a writer or performing, or is it about the same?
It's about the same, but just in different ways. Yeah.
Okay. What do you get out of writing that maybe you don't get out of performing?
Yeah. Well, the thing about composing is a lot of it really has to do with your imagination and the way you the way you notate something so anyone who wants to play it could really do what's in your head and what you imagine to be. So that's the rewarding part about it is really making your piece that you've had in your head for so long come to life. And performing is the opposite, which is as performers we're supposed to um, really interpret what the composer wanted, but also kind of give our own interpretation too. And and it really could show like your skills and what you're good at as a performer.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously, We Lived Happily During the War is would you consider it an anti-war piece? And maybe expand on that a little more. What drove you to actually write it is one thing to think it, but what actually drove you to write that piece?
Yeah. So We Lived Happily During the War was inspired by Ela Kaminsky's poem with the same title. And Ela Kaminsky was talking about America as being a very deceptive place where um, America, in this country, a lot of people are unaware of the destruction that America causes for other countries, and yet we lie to everyone and tell everyone this is the greatest country in the world. Nothing, America's foreign policy is great, and a lot of the problems that other countries face are because of America. So this piece is kind of like really speaking to how America is deceptive, even with its foreign policy as well as the domestic policies.
Okay, and you played that where? Where did you play that particular piece?
This was performed,
Hmm.
and this was a workshop piece that was
Okay.
performed at NYU, and I
Hmm.
wrote this piece for mezzo soprano, piano, and percussion.
Hmm.
Mm.
Okay. Did you get any backlash for that piece, considering, especially, the last 4 years, it's been a very kind of nationalistic fever that we had going on here. And did you get any kind of criticism for taking that stance and writing that piece?
No, I,
No?
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. Okay. So we're going to go with the theme by Brian Neighbors first.
Hmm.
Okay. And from that, we're going to speak a little bit more, and then we're going to go into the live piece, and maybe you can describe what a little backdrop about your live piece. So now we're going to hear the theme by Brian Neighbors.
Hmm.
Okay. We're going to. Wow, that was pretty awesome there, Che.
Yeah, thank you.
You really switched some gears, man. During that whole piece, is that one of the things that really attracted you to picking that piece to play this evening?
Yeah, yeah. I think that it's amazing, like just how there's so many different techniques in that piece, and it's also just a very fun, energetic piece to play. Yeah.
Right. Now, when you did, what is that called when you're using your finger, you're plucking away? Is that a just describe that aspect of violin play?
Yeah, so that's called pizzicato, and sometimes composers will ask for it. And as you noticed, there's probably one. Well, there's a couple of times where it's like snaps, kind of,
Right.
and it's called a Bartok pizz, and it's used as an effect to like have like a snappy, somewhat aggressive sound.
Okay. Now
Yeah.
I got to ask you, have you ever tried the cello? Because that seems to be obviously just a smaller version and in many ways of the cello. Have you attempted to play the cello and how was that? How did that experience go?
I have attempted, and it wasn't good.
Wasn't good?
Yeah, maybe if I learned it, like the violin, maybe I could get good at it, but it doesn't seem like I'm built to play that. But I
Okay.
do love the cello as an instrument.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. What would be your second instrument, however?
Maybe piano.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I play at a very beginner's level, but
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, I think if I had to learn like another instrument seriously, it would probably be piano.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to ask you about that violin. Is that something that's very you carry around with you? It must be a very intimate part of you, seeing
Yeah.
that you spend so much time with it.
Yeah.
And can you show me the violin that you're going to play with today, and maybe give us a little backdrop on it?
Yeah. Um, yeah, so this is my violin that I use right now, and it's made by a luthier named Douglas Cox, and I have it on loan through their loan program, and I really like it. It's a very bold, rich sounding instrument, and yeah, yeah, that's I really like. It was made in 2017. Um, yeah, it's and I got it I think last year. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So what would that typically cost about? What would be that price range?
Well, like at this level, it could range anywhere from 10,000 and up, basically.
Wow. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what's typical for high quality professional violins.
Right. Okay. So just getting into that, like for any of the young viewers that might be watching this, and you know their parents might be watching it and considering it as an option to
Mm.
them, that is an income level where it can be challenging. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
yeah, definitely.
Okay. And how would parents maybe circumvent that? Are there grants out there? From what you know, obviously, are there other avenues that could help offset these expenses?
Yeah, there are foundations that do, for their sole purpose is to give money to people who can't afford instruments. And there's also loan programs like how I have this one on loan by many different organizations
Hmm.
as well.
Okay. All
Hmm.
right, good. Who kind of got your start, so to speak? when you first came in? Obviously, you took classes, but there a mentor, somebody took you under their wing, so to speak, and who would that be?
Yeah, her name is Caroline Stessinger, who's a pianist, but she ran an academy called the Mozart Academy, which is an academy that was in Manhattan, whose purpose is to give free lessons to everyone.
Wow.
Yeah, and the whole point is to make classical music accessible for everyone, really. And that is a conversation that is also very relevant in like the classical music world.
Okay. Can you just say her name a little louder again, please?
Caroline Stessinger.
Okay. Wow, for her to give you lessons, and from what you know, what do classes typically start off with per hour?
Yeah, usually I would say on average maybe like $70 an hour. Like if you're first starting out, that wouldn't be uncommon. But it
Right,
does depend on who's teaching. Like if it's a college student, it probably wouldn't be that much. But if it
right,
is like a certified teacher who's had degrees, it wouldn't be uncommon to charge $70 an hour or more.
right.
Mhm.
Wow. So that's a credit to that lady that she was actually giving you free lessons,
Yeah.
and we really need more people like her around. You know what I mean? So I know you're very grateful to her.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. So talk about maybe some interactions you've had with younger people looking to get into violin.
Yeah.
And is there somebody now that you mentor, or is there somebody that maybe checks in with you occasionally, just to get maybe some pointers about violin?
Yeah, so in the past, when I did the National Youth Orchestra too, we did have the opportunity to work side by side with, I think they were fifth graders and sixth graders.
Hmm.
And we sat by them while they were doing orchestra, and we would give tips and advice to them. Um, yeah, from there. And I've also in the past have taught um, students who are younger than me. And I currently am teaching a student through this organization called Through the Staff, which is ran by all college and conservatory students. And
Right.
the whole point, again, is to make classical music accessible, and all those lessons through the staff are free. So, but I would definitely like to do even more, like engagement with younger players.
Okay. And if you're just joining us here, we have as a special guest Che Buford. He is based out of Brooklyn. He is a highly acclaimed violinist and composer, and so we're really delighted to have him with us today. He is a game changer in his own right, and we're here to hear his story. That classical music community is not something that we hear a lot about in the mainstream media. So I did want to bring you on, Che, to kind of shed some light as to this community, and as far as the diversity of it, where it was when you first got into where it was now. And what do you think, if anything, it needs to maybe give it a jolt so it has more people that look like you, like me, people of color?
Yeah. I think um, more programs like through the staff and like different organizations that really make it accessible for everyone need to be uplifted and need to happen more. Because I think the problem that's in the classical music has to do with elitism and just this idea that only the rich people really could afford $100 lessons and
Hmm.
afford pre-college programs and then eventually afford to go to conservatory. And I think when we start to um, start to have organizations like through the staff that offers free lessons to everyone, um, then I think that will help diversify classical music. I also think
Hmm.
we have to uplift black composers who have existed since the beginning of classical music. And
Mm.
unfortunately, a lot of these composers have been deliberately erased. And we only see composers who are dead white men, and that's the only ones who we choose to celebrate. But um, black composers and composers of color have existed through the beginning of classical music, and today there are many black composers and not just black, but all composers of color and all composers of different genders and sexual orientations who do need to be uplifted. Hmm.
No doubt, Che. And it's amazing that you are actually giving all those black composers and others that have been kind of scrubbed from history new life, man. So a credit to you. Kudos to you for actually speaking on that. Just off the cuff, name me one of those black composers that maybe you think has not gotten his or her just due, and just give maybe a little backdrop from any of those that really interested you.
Yeah. Um, well, one that I am thinking about is Samuel Coleridge Taylor, who is an English composer who lived in the 20th century. And his music is just so beautiful, and it's so surprising that no one really brought attention to him in the way that he deserved. But I'm thankfully learning some of his music now, and I think yeah, many people should definitely look into his music.
Okay, no doubt, no
Mm.
doubt. Okay, so if you don't mind, we can go into your live now
Yeah,
and just maybe speak on the name of this piece
yeah,
and what it's really about.
yeah. So this piece is actually going to be an improvisation that I started coming up with ideas earlier today, but this is just an improvisation. And this is something that I do like to do as a part of my practice because I think it does open a lot of doors for creativity
Mhm.
in my
Okay,
composing. Yeah.
okay, great, man. We're
Yeah.
ready.
Okay.
Wow, that's great stuff, man. Great stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes. And how often do you do this improvisational pieces? Ever so often? Does it keep you sharp? Does it keep you on your toes, so to speak?
Yeah, I think now I do it every day. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's just a very organic way to create material and to just connect with the instrument. Yeah.
Hmm. If you stay on script, so to speak, with just written music, can you get maybe a little complacent in terms of it artistically, just always, right?
Yeah, I think yeah, it does make you stiff artistically in my opinion.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of like it's not common for classical musicians to really improvise because we are reading music all the time and we do have to like follow um like what the composer said, and there's 300 years of tradition to follow. So I think improvisation isn't something that we're taught, and I think it should be. And yeah, so that's why I improvise. So I could just um, kind of like have a more organic relationship with my instrument.
Okay. And if
Yeah.
you could just let the viewers know, Che, obviously where to find you on your social platforms to sample your music.
Yeah. My Instagram is Che underscore Buford. Um, and my SoundCloud is Che's Music.
Hmm.
One word. And yeah, and I'm on YouTube as well, and it's just my name, Che Buford.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, as far as, do you have anything planned as far as a performance coming up? Anything in the near future?
Yeah, I have my junior recital on April 20th, and it'll be live streamed through Boston Conservatory's website.
Okay, so we can go on there and find
Yeah, and I'll release more information soon.
you. Okay, so once again, you can check out Che on IG. He'll have everything there. Che underscore Buford, and we'll definitely look out for that. Che, just talk about when was your last performance and talk about the gap in between. Talk about the unprecedented times we are now, kind
Yeah,
of detached from each other. Artistically speaking, has that been tough on you?
yeah. Um, yeah, so my last performance was 2 weeks ago, and I didn't perform, but it was a piece that was performed that I wrote um,
Hmm.
by Mimi Stillman, who's a flutist. And yeah, I think during this time, it has been difficult in some ways. Just the fact that we can't perform live, really, and everything has to be recorded. But I think it also has been a very rewarding time for me because I believe I did grow a lot artistically, uh,
Hmm.
violin wise and composition wise. Hmm.
Right. Have you actually grown closer to your violin, considering in these times it has actually kept your company? You can do what you just did as far as an improvise and do things with it. So have you actually grown closer to your instrument there, the violin?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Now, who's out there that you'd like to collab with? Is there somebody really on that marquee that man, I wish that one day, and who would that be? You can shout it out right now, man.
Um, I think like this is a very um, like this is like a big dream, but I would hope to maybe do a project with Caroline Shaw, who's
Mm,
a composer, violinist, vocalist based in New York. I just really like her artistry, and I think we're very just the ways that we think about our process as artists. I think we do have some similarities. So
mhm.
yeah.
Okay. Well, if she's listening, man, she knows where to contact you now for sure. That would be cool. What's been your biggest surprise in the past 10 years of, as I said, being in this community? Any surprises, and what really stands out for you?
Um, I think one big surprise that I have had was when one of my pieces was performed by the New York Philharmonic, which we will listen to
Right.
next. And um, it was just surprising because at the time I was only composing for about a year, and I was able to get that opportunity through the Very Young Composers orchestra program that the New York Phil has, and that was also the first time that I've written for orchestra, and it was great to just have that as my first piece played by the New York Phil.
Hmm. So that was your first big breakthrough moment, would you say?
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Okay, how much confidence did that give you?
Um, yeah, it did give me a good amount. I also did learn a lot from that experience as it was my first time writing for orchestra, which could be scary anytime, but especially as my first time.
What might be scariest about writing for orchestra?
Um, I think just like when it comes to orchestration and just it's I mean it's also just a bunch of instruments, like just having to write so many different parts is something that's scary, and just figuring out um, how to place them and how to orchestrate them is also the scary thing about orchestra writing.
Hmm. What was going through your mind when you heard your piece being played by the New York Film, man? I mean, I can't imagine, so I just have to ask you, what was going through your mind?
It was I was definitely nervous because it was just like, how is this gonna sound? Because we really don't hear um, our pieces. We only have like the MIDI playback on our notation softwares. So yeah, I was definitely nervous to see if it'll even sound good. But when I did hear the first rehearsal, it was like, wow. Um, yeah, I think I did. There were definitely things that I did like, and it was definitely exciting. Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what might be the biggest misconception about once again the violin, playing classical violin, that you'd like to maybe talk about right now? Because obviously, if you don't study enough from the outside, you develop misconceptions. Are there any that you know of, and would you like to dispel any right now?
Um. Hmm.
It,
I th-
it looks like a tough instrument to learn, first of all. Is it? It looks super tough, actually.
yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, it is.
It is. Okay.
Especially in the beginning. But it does get easier. I mean, well, like things that were some things get easier, but some things do get hard. Um, and but I think for the most part, it is definitely rewarding, and it all really depends on what your goals are and what you want to do with the instrument.
Hmm.
There is a misconception. I feel like I get asked all the time if you get neck pain.
Okay.
And no, you don't, unless you're doing something wrong. You have to
Okay.
be doing something wrong. So,
Right.
but yeah, no, I don't have chronic neck pain.
Okay. That's a valid question, man. Because to have the neck there for hours on end, I could see where you might need some Tylenol after a couple hours or so. So that's a valid question. Don't
Yeah.
dismiss that question, man. That's pretty good. Okay. So talk to me about what's that next big leap of faith that you'd like to take in your career? Is that something you dreamed about, whether it's opening a school? I mean, we talked a little bit about it in our pre-interview, but what gigantic thing, if any, do you want to accomplish?
um, I think it would be nice if I won a Pulitzer Prize
Mm,
for a work that I've created. Um, but I think a closer, um, significant goal that I'd want to have is, of course, like more education, like a master's degree, um, and in composition, and just really have really tighten up my skills in composition as well. But I think further down the line, it would
mhm.
be nice to win a Pulitzer Prize.
No doubt, that would be sweet.
Yeah.
That would be sweet.
Mhm.
Okay. And your mom is from Sierra Leone. Talk about traveling, maybe bringing your great music to other countries. Have you played in other countries, and where? I'm sure it has crossed your mind. What would be maybe the prime spots that you'd like to land in to do so?
Mhm. Yeah, I haven't played in any other countries yet. Um, but yeah, want I would definitely want to go back to Africa, Sierra Leone, or any other country in Africa, and um, yeah, play there and see um, what kind of collaborations and things I can do in other places as well.
Right. That would be cool. That
Hmm.
would be cool.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're going to go to another piece now, and Searchin is queuing it up for us. Thank you so much, Searchin Morris. You can find him on IG. He's one of the best when it comes to IT and engineering. If We Must Die is the piece, and just give us a little backdrop on this piece.
Yeah. So If We Must Die was inspired by Claude McKay's poem with the same title. And this was Claude McKay's response to the Red Summer of 1919, which was a time in America where there was so many riots of lynchings and burning down churches and yeah, just a lot of violence as well. But the poem really talks about like basically saying if we must die, we're not gonna die like cowards.
Mm.
In this piece, the way that the piece starts off very ugly and grotesque, but the form transcends into something more heroic um, and triumphant. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to convey with this piece.
Okay, and you wrote this piece.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. If We Must Die now, we're gonna hear it, and then we're gonna come back with Che Buford here.
Hmm.
All right. Wow. That's great, Che. And that was performed by the New York Phil, correct?
Yeah. Hmm.
Wow. And this was for the Very Young Composers concert?
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay, that's awesome. We saw you taking a bow there at the end, and it did start off very somber,
Yeah.
but at the end, definitely did sound triumphant at the end there, as far as the tone of that whole piece, man. That's a great, great piece. And we're going to go right next into We Lived Happily During the War. You touched on that, and you made very clear your stance on the war. Let me just ask you this, though. What do you think instead of war, what would be your solution in terms of conflict between countries, peoples, regions, and the like? What would you like to see
Yeah.
in
Uh,
place of war?
yeah. I mean, I think a lot could get done through conversation and empathy. I think just having empathy for other people and not being so concerned about money or oil are just ways to not have war. Yeah, so I think a lot of this has to do with just having empathy and not um, putting or not equating people's lives or making money or oil more value than people's lives.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And how about music as a medium? And
Yeah,
tell me how much that has allowed maybe you to, uh, gain some new friends and talk about what your violin and your music has done as far as doing that same thing, maybe breaking down some barriers.
yeah, yeah. I think music is definitely like a way to really connect with people and learn about people, and it really, like, I know it sounds cliche, but it really is like a universal language because um, I could go to China and
Hmm.
we could both read the same music and play music together, even though we don't necessarily speak the language. So, yeah, I think music does definitely bring people together. Um, and there isn't really like a lot of disagreement or any kind of conflict that comes with music.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Okay. Now you are at the epicenter of all the of the social justice marches last year. I'm sure you've seen them. You witnessed them after what happened with George Floyd and other victims of violence, racial violence.
Hmm.
How did you navigate all that, Che? How are you navigating it? And how can you do your part to make this country heal, you think?
Yeah. So definitely during that time, it was a very hard time um, for all of us, like especially Black people. And I think what the way that I did cope with it was kind of to avoid watching the news because it is filled with a bunch of trauma, and kind of like taking a break from social media as well, and instead working on art and music. And I think what I would do is what I continue to do, which is create music that reflects the time and um, and convince people that empathy is needed. Mhm.
Okay, great. And Jay, if you could just one more time tell the audience where to find you. We're actually going to close out with that piece. I think it's apropos. We're going to exit stage left with We Lived Happily During the War. One more time, where can we find you on your socials?
My Instagram is Che underscore Buford. My SoundCloud is Che's Music. And my YouTube is just my name, Che Buford.
Okay, great. So Che, in advance of that, thank you so much for coming on the show, making time on this Sunday with Game Changers with Fabian Lyon. You are indeed a game changer in the classical music field. We thank you for that. We wish you nothing but success and luck and to stay safe and to just keep doing what you're doing, man. You're inspiring a lot of people. So thank you. Much gratitude for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Okay, Che. And right now we're going to exit with We Lived Happily During the War. We thank everybody for tuning in tonight. You can find us on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. Game Changers with Fabian Line. We've had a game changer here tonight, Che Buford. And once again, we're going to close out with We Lived Happily During the War. Thank you so much, Che.